Vladimir Putin himself pointed out from the Orthodox Russian churches to several other historical linkages. Right now, he's boarded the plane. Those are live visuals coming in. He'll now head back to Moscow. Every reason to believe that he heads back with some positive takeaways and some would say even big wins for him. The first meeting between him and President Trump since the conflict started. First meeting on American soil in a decade. He actually got to speak longer than the American president. He got to speak first before the American president. He was on American soil, and he's invited the American president to now come to Russia. So those are the big wins for Vladimir Putin as he now heads back home, continues the war. The military momentum, many feel, is still with the Russian forces right now, and that momentum may just, I use the word may because remember it's a war. Every assault, every grinding assault takes a human toll. But as things stand right now, there is a military momentum that Russia has, and those forces are set to get that even more. The fillip with the sense of positivity and wins that Russian president may want to take with him as he heads back. All right, Maha Siddiqui and Vishal Vivek, my colleagues, have been with us through the broadcast. As we've been getting you every detail as far as this big story is concerned. And Vishal, we're talking about the big wins for Vladimir Putin. And let's tell our viewers in terms of why, when he heads back home, he has every reason to feel that he's gone back and returned with a sense of positivity and positive takeaways after this meeting.
Well, first off, let's go back about a week ago when there were supposed to be big sanctions announced by Trump. But instead of that, these talks were announced. So that instance itself was a big win for Putin. And now an extension of those wins, because this was on US soil. So that's historic. The president seemed quite confident about the future deal that could be thrashed out, both the presidents. So the overall bonhomie between both the sides seemed to have strengthened, because there had been some indications that Trump was quite upset with what Putin had been doing, because Trump had repeatedly claimed that he would be bringing an end to the war, end to the brutal 3-year Ukraine war, which seems to have killed over 1 million people, reports suggest. But he had not delivered on that front. The fact that the leader, President Trump, seemed positive at the end of the big summit and was all smiles, that tells the story that indeed there could be a breakthrough, there could be another round of talks. And this all signifies a big win for Putin, because this also means he doesn't have to worry about sanctions at the moment, because President Trump had been dishing out sanctions, tariffs left and right to the rest of the world. And Russia seems to have been spared till now, even though some of the biggest partners of Russia, including India, face big sanctions such as 50%, but Russia at the moment has avoided that. So it is a big win for Putin nonetheless.
Big win for Vladimir Putin. Instead of sanctions, he's going home with warm handshakes and the possibility of inviting the American president on Russian soil. This is a major no-go area for Europe, for NATO. And in fact, Donald Trump himself said that he's going to face heat and flack for it, but he didn't rule it out, viewers. That's the big thing that one needs to keep in mind, that there's a possibility of a summit now in Moscow. There's a possibility of Ukrainian President Zelensky joining in, even as no sanctions, no end to the conflict, no cessation of hostilities, no ceasefire, none of that. War continues, and Russian forces may get a fillip with what many feel Russian president heading home with several wins under his belt. How things pan out from here on remains to be seen. Whether the conflict will now end soon remains to be seen. Whether the Russia-America relationship will end and go into a completely different direction in terms of a fresh fillip, fresh energy remains to be seen. Will critical minerals now be a large and an important factor in the next phase of the Russia-US relationship? Are several aspects that we at NDTV will keep decoding for you. With that, we're slipping into a very short break, viewers. We come back with more details, more updates. Stay with us.
NDTV 24/7 is India's #1 English news channel on YouTube. Credible, compelling, always ahead of the curve. Thank you for choosing NDTV 24/7 as your trusted source for news.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru. Only on NDTV 24/7.
Vanakkam Tamil Nadu.
Now the battle for Tamil Nadu 2026 is open now.
After Chief Minister Stalin rolls up his sleeves.
And Vijay steps in as a star challenger.
This is a mass gathering, not for cash.
Meanwhile, a former Chief Minister, Edapadi Palanisamy, begins his fight back.
The big comeback campaign by EPS has well and truly begun.
These are all the ultimate players, and this is going to be the ultimate test.
Vishal, now the other thing that Putin said in that very brief press statements, they didn't take any questions, but he said that this war would not have started if Donald Trump had been in office. Now that's a claim that Trump has made again and again. The 2020 election itself is a separate issue altogether. We're not going into that, but that claim, that reassurance coming in from Vladimir Putin, is there any indication of the talks, the direction in which they went, the possibility of an early breakthrough, and how soon we could potentially see that roadmap being identified and publicly talked about?
Well, Gauri, though this whole episode seems to be quite vague, though it has, that positive energy coming out of it, but still we don't have the details, because Trump and Putin both spoke at length about their ties, termed each other as not rivals but friends, but it remains to be seen what exactly the details are, because Trump has said that he will make some calls now, he'll speak with the other stakeholders such as NATO, such as Zelensky, because Zelensky had just commented moments ago that he expects US to bat for it, because it has repeatedly said that Putin is not ready to back down, he will not stop the war, and Zelensky on the other hand has been repeatedly saying that there could be trilateral talks, but there needs to be a ceasefire. So it's a deadlock situation. How Trump and Putin navigate through it, how Trump actually navigates through it, that will have to be seen. Though he seemed quite positive, that itself is a big sign, but there's no detail as to share as to how this will progress further. But there will be more meetings. Putin has proposed a meeting in Moscow. That's a tall order for now, but there will be indeed meeting probably at a neutral venue where some top leaders from both the sides, probably from all the three sides, US, Russia and Ukraine, engage in further discussions. Zelensky has repeatedly proposed a meeting with Putin, meeting with top level of Russian officials, but Putin mostly has rejected that and has not been interested in meeting Zelensky. So that if that changes, that will be the biggest development coming out of this meeting.
Absolutely, that will be the most important takeaway as far as going forward. But viewers tuning in right now, the big breaking news that we are putting out right here first on NDTV, which is that the summit, the Alaska summit between Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin has concluded. The longest face-to-face meeting between the two leaders surpassed the time they met in Helsinki. Stakes have been higher since then. But as things stand right now, they're likely to meet again. But right now, there is no deal until there's a deal. That's what Donald Trump has said. In typical Trump style, he said, we've made progress, big significant issues have been addressed, one significant issue remains that will be thrashed out in Moscow is the key question. Now, Maha, let's also take our viewers through the fact that there was this 3+3 meeting that took place, 3 people from the American side, the 3-member delegation on the Russian side, the significance of that and why it was changed from a one-on-one formal structured meeting to one that had was actually 3 people on each of the side of the delegations.
Well, Gauri, there is no official explanation for why this change in schedule happened. And it happened right at the last moment, just about 40 to 45 minutes before the meetings were supposed to start. White House officials confirmed to those, the spray pool inside the joint base that this will now be a 3+3 meeting rather than a one-on-one. Now, there could be several reasons for it. First could be the time constraint, considering that it was decided that there'll be a one-on-one. Then during lunch, the larger delegations will join in. Perhaps it was decided that considering that there is an interpreter as well, there is translation to happen, it will take away some time. It was best to have it in a 3+3 format. But honestly, there is no official explanation for that. So at the moment, it is very hard to guess, and especially because things were changing so rapidly. And even though they had some time afterwards, there was almost about an hour left after the 3+3 meeting had concluded for the press conference to start. The press conference also started much earlier than it was scheduled for. It was scheduled for 3:30 p.m. local time here, which would have been 5 a.m. Indian Standard Time. So it started much earlier. In fact, it ended even before its scheduled time to begin. So, I mean, one could interpret this as perhaps Donald Trump thinking that that there is a possibility of a deal at the moment. So let's just get what the demands can be met by Russia and take them to Ukraine for the next level of meeting. He already said that there's no deal till there is a deal. So in some sense, even while he's giving us a positive or an optimistic outlook as a businessman himself, before being a president, he knows that there are many a slip between the cup and the lip. And therefore, this was just a meeting to understand the Russian side. And this 2.5 hours were enough to do that. So there could be several explanations and reasons for that. The importance of the leaders, the accompanying the delegation, of course, 2 of them were foreign ministers, so they were there. As far as Steve Witkoff is concerned, he is a special representative, special envoy for the president. There has been some criticism in America about him, he having, in fact, visited Moscow as well. And there were visuals of him seen walking around in Moscow. Certain people were critical about that as well. About his background, him being a real estate lawyer, that is also something that a lot of people have raised, saying that he has no political or, so to speak, foreign policy acumen to really be in that room that is discussing such an important issue of bringing an end to a war that has been going on for 3.5 years. Gauri, before I end this answer, I also want to quickly draw your attention to what President Putin said in the end, saying that why don't we have the next meeting in Moscow? And President Trump said, well, that will generate a lot of heat. So really, I mean, historically, if you look at it, it was like how many people would have imagined a Russian president on a joint military base in US being welcomed by the US president and a warm handshake being given there.
Absolutely. The optics there. And Maha, he hinted. Trump ended by saying, I can see getting some heat, but I cannot rule it out. It's possible. That's what he said in the end. That last 2 words tell you, and also the optics here. And Vishal, I'm going to come to you for that as well. But Maha, the optics here, and let's get at that big wins for Putin as well. For our viewers tuning in to really understand in diplomacy, every move, every gesture matters, and that's how messaging is sent out. First and foremost, visit to a US military base for Putin, the warm greeting that he got. Many European allies said that there was a red carpet welcome that was being accorded to the Russian president by Donald Trump. And the third important point as far as the win is another delay in terms of secondary sanctions. There's been a lot of talk about it. It hasn't happened. So that window, the economic window that is crucial for the Russian war machinery continues. And lastly, the fact that summit buys time to be able to continue the war as things stand. There's no cessation of hostilities. There's no interim ceasefire, none of that. Just and that window is equally important. And Maha, may I add, in terms of some of these wins, the last fact, you've covered a lot of foreign delegations, you've covered a lot of these events. How many times does the foreign dignitary actually gets to start first? And I think that's extremely significant as well. Every gesture, every such move matters in terms of overall messaging.
Well, absolutely. And you laid out quite correctly the optics that played out today is certainly something that will now be analyzed point by point by various experts to see what it could have indicated. In fact, even specifically, Gauri, bilaterally for Russia and America. After all, this relationship has always intrigued the world. And President Putin today also mentioned, made a mention of the Cold War. And in that context today, to see the two sides meeting on a US military base, and also the fact that there were issues that were of bilateral nature that came up, which also give us a sense of whether this was just a move about Ukraine, which of course it was on the face of it, and specifically because President Trump, his personal ambition to have a Nobel Prize is also perhaps hinged on this being instrumental in bringing an end to the Ukraine war. But Gauri, if you saw that several bilateral issues were mentioned between the two sides, especially by President Putin, if I can recall correctly, where he was talking about the economic deals that they can have in the sector of tech. Critical minerals is one sector which has been speculated here in the US that it is possible that there could be some Russian investment in Alaska, and it hasn't gone down well with a lot of political leaders here who believe that this critical sector is not where there could be an involvement of a country that was not too long ago not trusted at all by the United States. So there are so many layers today in the meeting, apart from only the issue of Ukraine. If you also look at the economic angle of bilateral cooperation between Russia and the United States, I think that is also something that will be analyzed. And all these optics that you've just mentioned of the red carpet, the handshake, Putin going ahead first, speaking about what came out of the meeting, all those can be very closely tied to this bilateral aspect as well.
Vishal, let me come in. Let me get you in there in terms of Donald Trump saying that now he will reach out to NATO, to European allies to let them know in terms of the specifics. Hopefully, there'll be more specifics than what we are working with in terms of how this meeting actually went. And, taking on from what Maha just said, which is that a lot of European allies of America have also been, thinking that a large part of this summit is actually going to focus upon the Russia-America bilateral relationship and not focus on ending the war.
Yeah, that also, propels from the fact that Vladimir Putin himself had said that the sides could even discuss, nuclear weapons, the ties between both the nations when it comes to nuclear weapons, because the big treaty between Russia and US that, puts limits on nuclear weapons for both the sides, that is set to expire in February next year. So that was supposed to be one of the topics of discussions. Whether or not that figured in these talks, that will have to be seen. But the experts, EU leaders, Ukrainian leaders specifically, they were all concerned that their side of the story will not be discussed. But that doesn't seem to be the case so far, because Putin himself has said that Ukraine's interests are also to be considered. Those were not the exact words, but he did mention Ukraine in a positive way, which is a big departure from tradition, because he had always clamped down when it comes to Zelensky, when it comes to Ukrainian side of the story. But that is one small sentence from Putin that signifies that there has been some positive development when it comes to the Ukraine war. That itself could be a signal that this war could come to an end anytime soon. The timeline is difficult to ascertain at the moment, but these are some really positive signs.
हेलो बोलिए मैडम, डब्बा ट्रेडिंग कब से चल रहा है पता है मैडम आपको? हम और आप तो जन्म भी नहीं हुआ था हमारा.
We investigated a shady advisory firm that has spent big bucks on advertising on the front pages of national dailies.
ये आपको बिल्कुल उसका ऐसा हल्का सा भी खौफ नहीं है?
मैडम एक बात को खौफ किस लिए रखना चाहिए ये तो बताओ, कौन सा गलत काम कर रहा हूँ मैं?
After our report, we also saw NSE came out with a cautionary circular to the investors. Market Regulator Securities and Exchange Board of India has also come out with a release talking about the actions that it has taken. Cyber complaint has also been filed against the entities involved in this entire Dabba trading scam.
Is your business future ready? Join the 13-week strategic ESG certification program for business sustainability and growth for CXO and business leaders by NDTV, Terry and Zenora. Master global ESG frameworks, gain real-world tools and lead with impact. Starts August the 23rd. Enroll now and power your business with sustainability.
यहाँ पे आप खड़े रहेंगे?
नहीं यहाँ पे. एक्शन. तेरी सांसों
को मेरे दिल में पनाह मिल जाए.
मैं पढ़ के
आप नहीं कहा.
मुझे याद नहीं.
चलो सुनने करके.
अरे भैया आप मेरे आगे मत रहो.
हमारी एक्टिविटीज जो आगे और शाम के फंक्शन तक आप ठीक रहेंगे ना?
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल.
अभी चाय लेंगे?
हाँ.
थोड़ा राइट में लीजिए. प्रवीण जी, वी आर रेडी व्हेन यू आर रेडी. काफी लोगों का कार्यक्रम है, जोरदार तालियों से जरा जय जवान का और अपना स्वागत हम यहीं पे कर लेते हैं. थैंक यू सो मच. एक बार जोरदार तालियां आप सभी के लिए.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time.
As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation, however strange it may sound in these conditions. We have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict. And we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we're prepared to work on that.
Let's play out exactly what Donald Trump said. It was a very short briefing, the press statements that were issued by the two leaders. Listen into exactly what the American president said and how it lays the groundwork for the next steps as far as ending the conflict.
I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite got there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate. And I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Ratcliffe. Thank you very much. But we have...
Live visuals coming in of Donald Trump now leaving Anchorage in Alaska, where he had held that crucial summit with Vladimir Putin, which ended about an hour back. The summit paves the way for a roadmap at some point of time that will be thrashed out in detail for ending the conflict as far as Russia-Ukraine is concerned. But as things stand right now, the conflict hasn't ended. The summit hasn't led to a deal, so to say, in terms of... But those are live visuals that are coming in right now, viewers, of Donald Trump's Air Force One now departing from Alaska. A short while back, Vladimir Putin had also departed. And remember, Alaska is just 55 miles away from the Russian territory. And now it is Donald Trump who's now departing from the venue. Now, Alaska, in fact, is one of the most politically favorable areas for Donald Trump. He's won this territory all the 3 times that he has contested for the presidential elections, and each time he's actually bettered his political record, so to say. So Alaska is home ground in that sense for Donald Trump, for Republicans, and there it served as the right place on several accounts to host Vladimir Putin, from a cultural and historical aspect for Russia, to also a politically favorable point for Donald Trump as well. And what you're seeing right now on your screens are live visuals of Donald Trump, who's set to depart very soon. I believe we have David K. Johnston, a senior journalist, joining us from Washington, D.C. How do you read the summit, sir?
Well, there was something very unusual at the start of the press briefing. Usually always the host president or the host prime minister speaks first.
Yeah.
And that's not what happened here. And Putin, of course, was smiling from ear to ear. Trump was somewhat stone-faced about this. Putin began with 2 historical points that will serve him back home. One was that Alaska used to be Russian territory, and the message to the Russian people from that and to the rest of the world is borders can change, borders aren't fixed, which is beneficial to his position. And then secondly, discussing World War II and the monument he went to see, where the Soviet Army and American military forces have this monument in eastern Russia. You'll notice there was nothing said about a ceasefire. There was nothing said about any substance, but there was an implied threat by Putin, who essentially said, if the Europeans or others don't get on board with this and accept what we've, in outline at least, agreed to, it's on them. That he was grinning tells me that Donald Trump told him he can keep at least part of, and maybe all, of the Ukrainian territory taken by force in a war of choice started 3.5 years ago by Vladimir Putin, which is, I think, Putin's principal interest. And then finally, Putin at the end talked all about commercial deals with the United States. And there's nothing Donald Trump loves more than to be able to come home and say, oh, the prime minister said, thank you, Mr. President, for having us give you billions of dollars. We're so grateful to you for showing us the right way to do this. And Putin played right into that and got what he wanted. And having negotiated with Donald many times myself over the last 37 years, always got what I wanted, because Donald is not a good negotiator, contrary to his claims. All you have to do is butter him up and figure out what will get him to do what you want him to do. And you can pull it off if you're a half-decent negotiator.
Okay, so that's one view coming in from David K. Johnston on the broadcast. We also have Maha Siddiqui with us on the broadcast. She's been tracking viewers every aspect of the summit in Anchorage, getting us all those details. And things are now almost winding up there. Maha, you have live visuals we're getting right now of Donald Trump's Air Force One now taking off from the venue. Vladimir Putin has already taken off, I believe. So to that effect, things have now pretty much wrapped up from there.
Yes, absolutely. And wrapped up a little ahead of time. We were expecting it to go on for some more time because the initial scheduled time for the press conference itself was 3:30 p.m. local time, which would have been 5 a.m. Indian Standard Time. But everything happened earlier than scheduled. Also, the schedule was changed, as we have already pointed out earlier, from a one-on-one meeting. It was decided that there will be a 3+3, wherein both the leaders had two of their close associates, the foreign ministers on both sides, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, of course, this side, and Steve Witkoff and Yuri Ushakov on the other side. So there were things that changed a bit. There was high expectation from this meeting. And even though over the last 1 week, President Trump had tried to tone down the expectation from the meeting, also indicating that perhaps it could also lead to no ceasefire. But many people believe that a ceasefire would have, at least a ceasefire, even if a temporary one, would have been something that could perhaps have helped build a robust foundation for the next leg of the talks. As President Trump has himself pointed out that no deal can take place without Ukraine being kept in the loop. That, of course, happened only after Ukraine and the European allies built pressure on America first of all, Ukraine was being left out of this meeting. And Ukraine is the country against which Russia has waged this war and this aggression. So it is grossly unfair that they are not on the table. So now President Trump, who's heading back to Washington, D.C., he said that he will be speaking to NATO and President Zelensky, updating them about the developments in this meeting. But considering that hostilities continue between Russia and Ukraine, that even ahead of the summit, we saw aggressive stance on the Russian side as well as Ukraine now. How does this lead to the second leg of talks? Had there been any ceasefire announced, a temporary ceasefire, even that would have perhaps been helpful. So we'll have to wait to see what the next steps really are when they are outlined clearly.
Absolutely. And let me take that question quickly to Johnston, which is that the next summit, as things stand right now, there's a very high chance it may take place in Moscow.
Well, if it does, I would be totally shocked if Vladimir Zelensky shows up. That's not a safe place for him. Vladimir Putin cannot go in most places in the world because there is a criminal warrant out for his arrest from the International Court of Criminal Justice. But I could see a meeting in China, in North Korea, and some other place where it's safe for Putin to travel. Whether Zelensky will come to any meeting, though, is completely unknown at this point. Certainly, it appears from this press conference that Zelensky has essentially been sold downriver by Donald Trump in whatever went on in those 2.5 to 3 hours of talks today.
All right. David and Maha, request both of you to stay with us. We continue our rolling coverage of the Alaska summit. A quick break. We return with more details of what really happened after this very short break. Stay with us.
And you know, that's why it's being said that after Kahuna Pyare, this is the film that has got two superstar debutants who are becoming superstars. But what was this faith that you had on these two that you know that shows on screen?
You know, you don't plan to make a blockbuster. You plan to make a good film. And that's what I think they never let me, you know, they didn't put that pressure on me to live up to. They never gave me a number that we have to hit or a so-called figure that I have to open to. there was all these trappings were just not there, which normally producers do end up putting that pressure. Then you make wrong things. Then you add a song for a shadi song, add a Punjabi song. All these trappings were not there in this film. They were like, just go there and make your film. Do this script. We love this script and make it honestly. And I think the minute that happened, a filmmaker I could just spread my wings and just go out, not worrying about a few. I think when you do that, you get a little more fearless, and then that's what got picked up by people. So I cast appropriate for the film. I didn't cast thinking. I cast what felt right.
You were saying that you are going to say no to him.
Yeah. But that's his fault. Huh? He was now you see, now that we can talk about the film, Krish Kapoor cannot be a timid, sweet boy.
Yes,
sir, how are you, sir?
Last time we spoke.
Yeah, and I was like, what is this guy? He was a sweet boy.
Trump-Putin meeting wrap-up after a high-stakes meeting that took place in Alaska. Trump says no deal reached with Putin on Ukraine. Putin offers to host Trump next time in Moscow. No peace deal announced in the Putin-Trump meeting from Alaska with ambiguity. Talks end, but not the tensions. 60 people killed, 500 feared, trapped in terms from the Kishtwar cloudburst. NDTV is reporting from Ground Zero. Viewers, the ICE summit, the one in Alaska between Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, has ended. There were smiles, there were warm handshakes, but there was no deal. The Trump-Putin meeting broke the ice between the two leaders. No ceasefire has been announced. No agreement has been announced in terms of clear timelines, roadmap as to how the Russia-Ukraine conflict will end. There's a possibility of the next summit, the next meeting between the two leaders taking place in Moscow. How that pans out is something that we will decode right here for you on NDTV. But first up, let's play out exactly what the two leaders said after that very short press briefing that they took, where they came out with statements but did not take any questions. Listen in.
Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all.
As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation, however strange it may sound in these conditions. We have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict, and we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we're prepared to work on that.
I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Ratcliffe. Thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here, and I think everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time, and we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. That made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all, but we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax, but what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you.
I could see it possibly happening. Those are the final set of words that were exchanged between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump as they wrap things up in Anchorage in Alaska. And that really sets the stage for what lies ahead. Let's now quickly rope in a guest joining me this morning, Matt Klink, who's a Republican strategist, Sarah Clare, who is a professor and foreign policy commentator, and David K. Johnston, senior journalist, joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me on this special broadcast. And in fact, let me start with Matt and Sarah in terms of their opening comments. Even though there may not have been a ceasefire, there may not have been a cessation of hostilities, no roadmap, but clearly people now, the experts are talking who won and who got the better end of the deal in terms of the summit. Sarah, there is a growing sense that Vladimir Putin may have just come out with more potential wins that he will be taking back to Moscow with him.
I wouldn't say that. I think that, President Trump, his goal with this meeting was to find out what Putin wanted and what would bring him to the table with Ukraine. And we actually heard a little bit of that in the comments that he made at the podium, at the press conference, where he talked about wanting cooperation on tech and space and Arctic exploration. And he also said that he wanted to work towards an end to the Ukraine war. So I think we're finally possibly getting a sense of that, and that's what Trump was looking for. It was definitely, a disappointment that they weren't able to come to a better deal, but Trump did mention that he was going to be calling up the Europeans and the Ukrainians. So I also think we need to wait and see how those conversations go, because those are the people who matter in terms of moving this forward. So, we may be hearing more about this. It may evolve after Trump has those conversations.
All right, Matt, then let me ask you this. When those conversations happen with people who are directly affected by the Russia-Ukraine conflict, would they be happy with the next summit actually taking place in Moscow?
Well, I don't think that the next summit, that was a great response by Vladimir Putin, but I do not believe that Zelensky is going to go to Moscow to negotiate an end to the war. Trump may go to Moscow to talk about other things with Putin. But look, anyone who says that, or anyone who thinks that they can predict a winner or a loser from what just happened is filling it full of their own ideological biases. I've heard everything from Putin has the advantage because Russia once owned Alaska, to, the dimple in ties. Bottom line, nobody knows. The press event that they had was not a press conference. Both leaders made statements and got out of town quickly. There will ultimately be a readout that will happen, and at that point, we'll be able to determine what, if anything, of consequence happened. I will tell you that on American TV just a few minutes ago, that Donald Trump rated the meeting a 10, but he also said during his remarks that there is no deal until there is a deal, clearly indicating that nothing was solved. So again, anybody who says that Putin won or Trump won, it's just political posturing on their part. And that it's irrelevant.
Okay, it may seem irrelevant, but let's also remember that these two presidents, they're also political leaders. They go back to their constituency, their core base that they need to also address and speak to. And when Vladimir Putin goes back to Russia, to Moscow, to talk about how things pan out from here on, what will be the next step, the next roadmap, some of the messaging that came out during this summit will be equally important. David, which brings me to ask you that the summit is inconclusive. Where do we go from here in terms of the conflict? It continues. There is no cessation of hostilities. There is no ceasefire. And there is a certain military momentum that the Russian forces have right now.
Yeah, the things to watch for going forward are going to be whether Trump holds back on providing weaponry and intelligence to the Ukrainians, which he's done in the past. We will, once Trump has spoken with leaders of several European nations, I would expect Keir Starmer to be key among those, things will start to leak out. You can't keep this secret once there's a growing circle of people, and we'll begin to hear more about what happened here. But don't miss the fact that Putin spoke first. He was grinning ear to ear, was clearly in a very good mood, and Putin's made clear what he wants. We're going to keep the territory we took by force as part of this deal. One of the issues I'm sure they did not resolve today is what about the 20,000 kidnapped Ukrainian children that Russia is now trying to parcel out as adoptees to make them Russians. That would clearly have to be part of any settlement. But within a few days, I think we'll have a fairly good picture of just what went on in that room. We should be very glad that Trump did not meet alone with Putin as originally proposed, with only a translator, likely a Russian translator in the room. Marco Rubio and some others from the State Department were there. So we do have
but there was also that very brief but very important. There was also that very brief but very important ride that the two leaders took in the Beast. So whatever, if they wanted to speak to each other, they had that. I don't know, that may be a 10-minute window or 8-minute window, whatever, but that window did exist.
It certainly is window dressing for Putin to have ridden in the Beast. And in that way, in a PR sense, diplomatic PR sense, Putin did very well today.
And Vladimir Putin also looked up as the B-2 and 4 F-35s flew overhead, and at a base that's being used for a military operation being run right now in the northern the northern part of the world. So, I mean, look, there's PR going all the way around here. So, yeah, let's just say I can tell you're not a Trump fan because you're focusing on, I mean, look, I mean, Putin didn't get what he wanted either. And Donald Trump still has primary and secondary sanctions that he can impose if he doesn't get closer to what he wants. So let's not look at this just from one perspective. There are two sides to the story, and we're both guessing on what happens because only two people know ultimately what happened, and it will leak out once those conversations start happening, but we don't know right now.
Okay, we don't know.
Well, actually, thankfully, it's more than two because Trump did not go alone to the 2.5-hour meeting as he did in previous meetings where he said he trusted Putin and took him at his word and did not trust American intelligence agencies.
Okay, that was far back in time.
You mean the same intelligence agencies that leaked information about Donald Trump?
No, it was far back in time. It was far back in time. Viewers, David K. Johnston is talking about the 2018 summit in Helsinki between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin that resulted in that, many would say, a very stunning news conference that followed where several allegations that were made by the American intel officials were not accepted by President Trump. But remember, this is not about that. This is not about that. You know, I don't want to talk about that domestic affairs of America so far back in time.
But you just brought it up.
I want to talk about what happened today because this impacts not just America and Russia or Ukraine or Europe. This impacts the world. And that is why it's so important for the world to probably know what happens from here on. And Sarah, that's what I want to come to you. We can keep debating. There will always be two sides to who won, who came out as a winner, who goes back to talk about potential wins from this summit. But the larger point is that the summit was inconclusive in terms of providing any opportunity or a roadmap to end the conflict. And that is the largest and biggest takeaway of this. Sarah?
We don't know that yet.
I would say that, you know, Putin, the fact that Trump went to the press conference with Putin, Trump would not have done that if he felt like Putin was wasting his time. So I'm taking that as a positive sign. In terms of ending the war or, you know, making progress towards a ceasefire, there's definitely more work that needs to be done on that. I think it's also important to take into consideration the comments that Putin made about, you know, hoping that Europe and Ukraine don't interfere with the progress that's been made. And I think that was a very interesting point to focus on because the Europeans, Ukraine is in the war, so that's different. But the Europeans have been sticking their noses in this from the very beginning, and it has mostly turned out to be unproductive. So, I do wonder how Trump is going to handle that. That is a question that I think we'll all be looking at is Trump going to be able to manage the relationship with Europe and the relationship with Russia in order to move this forward?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Matt, you were making a point in terms of the fact that you disagree that this summit was inconclusive. You have a different view there?
Yeah, we don't know if it was inconclusive. We'll probably know within the next 4 to 6 hours a heck of a lot more. But if progress was made, then it wasn't inconclusive. There was never going to be an end to the war. And I hate to break it to everyone who thinks that Russia is going to get territory back, especially the Crimea that the Russians have held since 2014 when Barack Obama was president. That ain't happening. They may swap some territory in eastern Ukraine, but Ukraine is going to lose territory, and this war ultimately needs to end. America is no longer going to fund this war.
So, Matt, I have one disagreement with you, irrespective of whatever may be the contours at whatever point of time that the world may finalize. If there was a deal today, if there was any agreement, I would like to believe, and I'm sure many viewers watching this would agree, that Donald Trump would have most certainly announced that. And for him to say there is no deal is something that pretty much says that there are 2 points that exist right now. And David, let me then come.
And if he had struck a deal, you would have said that Vladimir Putin wasn't there. This is a bad deal.
No,
so
I'm
he
not
said there
Putin's
wasn't going to be a
spokesperson,
deal.
And I'm most certainly not a Trump spokesperson either, sir. I'm just saying from the point of view of millions of people watching this broadcast around the world who would be thinking that this was a very anticipated and important meeting. And what happens next? And, that's the larger point. The roadmap is up in the air. It hasn't been identified. And the sense one gets is that it is likely to potentially be firmed up when Donald Trump speaks to his allies in Europe. That's the broader sense we get.
Correct.
That's when it could probably be firmed up. But then, David, let me then ask you about the critical minerals aspect. Many feel that that could really be the big X factor in terms of how the Trump administration would view the talks from here on from a bilateral point of view between US and Russia.
Well, remember that Donald wanted the Ukrainians to pay America for defending against Russian aggression, something which Republicans always were opposed to until Donald Trump. They believed in freedom and liberty, not giving in to dictators, especially from Moscow. Now, Trump believes that there's a lot of mineral wealth he wants the U.S. to get in Ukraine. I don't know why we would have any right to it. He's also relying on 1950s Stalin-era geological reports that may not be at all reliable. There are lots of dimensions to this beyond the immediate talk. India has an interest in this because India has been benefiting from the war by getting Russian oil at about 20% below the world price. That's been great for the Indian economy and India's efforts to restore itself as the wealthiest country in the world. But if there is an end to this transaction, to the sanctions that the Trump administration has placed on, and some of the ones from the Biden era that continue, India will pay a price for this as well by paying 25% more for the oil than it's paying now. But I think we'll find out quite quickly what happened here, what the outlines of the deal are. My principal concern as an American is this would be the first time an American president and Republicans have bowed down to a naked aggression by a dictator who was subject to a treaty to never invade Ukraine, and how anybody with a moral conscience can side with anything but forcing Putin out is difficult for me to comprehend. And I've been covering Donald for almost 40 years, know him very well, negotiated with him very successfully every time, and have covered lots of complex issues. And this is a whole new development of Republicans who want to cut and run rather than stand up for liberty and freedom.
All right. I'm going to take a quick break and we come back. Request all of you to stay with us. We come back on the broadcast. Remember, going into this meeting, Donald Trump said high stakes. 2 words, 3 exclamation marks. We come back and ask how things stand right now after that high stakes meeting. And most importantly, talk about the subtle messaging from rolling the red carpet to laying flowers at that World War II memorial that Putin did. What's the messaging there? We come back and talk on that and much more. Stay with us.
Pulling us into this country.
They argue, I conclude. They deflect, I drill down. Stop. This isn't a free-for-all. It's a reckoning. No filler, no fog. Only the facts and where they lead. Every night at 9, the case closes because the buck stops here.
Rajasthan is history, culture, and much more. And I have been reporting on all things royal for more than 25 years.
The colors, the culture, and the complexities of the Northeast is different from the rest of the country. I have been bringing the Northeast closer to the capital for over 15 years.
Madhya Pradesh is the heart of India, and I have been capturing its every beat for over 10 years, covering the corridors of power,
what is said, what is left unsaid, and what it actually means for you and me. I have it all covered.
Kashmir is often called paradise on earth, a region that has been in a state of flux from conflict to India's crowning glory. I have been reporting and decoding Jammu and Kashmir for last 3 decades.
Mohit, you are known for your music. All your films, musics stay with us till today. I'm a millennial and those music are kind of music. So whenever we say Mohit Suri film aa raha hai, we know the music will be good, right? It's a given. So you really work hard. But is this always like how you create your music? You need everything in place, the mood, the lighting, even when the person is in the studio and just singing. And also, how did you select your musicians that this person's voice is perfect for this song?
That's what I think, the amount you give to a song, that's how long it will last, I think. Everyone does the programming, everyone writes the words, everyone makes the thing. But the thing is how much you give, how much of heart you give to the lyrics or to the music or to the melody or to the singing. That's how long the song will last, is what I genuinely feel. If you don't give that love, you're not going to get it back. It's just a simple debit and credit procedure, I think, with the audience. I genuinely feel I don't have any special skill. I don't know any scale or anything else. It's just that I enjoy that process a lot. Give me an evening to just go for a film party or something, I'll skip it. But you give me like a struggling musician to go who has a great tune, some new guys, chill all night with them. I can do that. I can just sit there, make music and stuff like that. We just did that recently. Fahim came down. He just surprised us, and we met in my Bandra office, and Ahan was there, Aneet was there, and he made me hear his other songs and stuff like that.
TV 24/7 is India's #1 English news channel on YouTube. Credible, compelling, always ahead of the curve. Thank you for choosing NDTV 24/7 as your trusted source for news.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru, only on NDTV 24/7.
Vanakkam Tamil Nadu.
Well, the battle for Tamil Nadu 2026 is open now.
After Chief Minister Stalin rolls up his sleeves.
And Vijay steps in as a star challenger.
This is a mass gathering, not for cash.
Meanwhile, a former Chief Minister, Edapadi Palanisamy, begins his fight back.
The big comeback campaign by EPS has well and truly begun.
These are all the ultimate players, and this is going to be the ultimate test.
हेलो बोलिए मैडम, डब्बा टेडिंग कब से चल रहा है पता है मैडम आपको? हम और आप तो जन्म भी नहीं हुआ था हमारा.
We investigated a shady advisory firm that has spent big bucks on advertising on the front pages of national dailies.
ये आपको बिल्कुल उसका ऐसा हल्का सा भी खौफ नहीं है.
मैडम एक बार को खौफ किस लिए रखना चाहिए तो बताओ, कौन सा गलत काम कर रहा हूँ मैं?
After our report, we also saw NSE came out with a cautionary circular to the investors. Market Regulator Securities and Exchange Board of India has also come out with a release talking about the actions that it has taken. Cyber complaint has also been filed against the entities involved in this entire Dabba trading scam.
Is your business future ready? Join the 13-week strategic ESG certification program for business sustainability and growth for CXO and business leaders by NDTV, Terry and Zenora. Master global ESG frameworks, gain real-world tools and lead with impact. Starts August the 23rd. Enroll now and power your business with sustainability.
यहाँ पे आप खड़े रहेंगे. मैं यहाँ पे. Action.
तेरी सांसों को मेरे दिल में पनाह मिल जाए।
मैं पढ़ के
आप नहीं कहा था।
मुझे याद नहीं।
चलो सुनने करके।
अरे भैया आप मेरे आगे मत रहो।
हमारी एक्टिविटीज जो आगे और शाम के फंक्शन तक आप ठीक रहेंगे ना?
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। हम चाय लेंगे? हाँ थोड़ा राइट में लीजिए।
Hello, Moto.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
Welcome back, viewers. Tuning in right now, the big story that NDTV has been on top of, viewers, is the Alaska summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. It ended a short while back. Though it's been inconclusive, it has led to some positivity in terms of the possibility of ending the Russia-Ukraine conflict. What you're seeing right now on your screens are essentially the visuals, the warm welcome that Vladimir Putin got on the red carpet. Donald Trump was waiting for him. He clapped and then shook his hand. Also, the two leaders rode together in the Beast. That is the name of the vehicle of the American president. Originally, the two leaders were supposed to meet one-on-one. That meeting then became one which had the delegations on both sides, but the two leaders did get to speak one-on-one in that short ride that you see on your screens, that visual that's playing with the two leaders being in the Beast. Did they speak much? Is anybody's guess, but the two leaders like the style of speaking one-on-one. And lastly, the presser, the short presser, the press conference where they did not take any questions, but paved the way for a possible second summit that could take place in Moscow. Donald Trump said that he will get a lot of heat for it, but he also said he will work around it. That will send shockwaves around most European capitals, with the possibility of a second summit actually taking place in Moscow. I want to first play out that soundbite, exactly what Donald Trump said, with Vladimir Putin hinting next time in Moscow. And then we're also going to play out what is it that Vladimir Putin said at that short but very important press briefing. And then we come back and talk more with our panel of guests.
Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all.
As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation, however strange it may sound in these conditions. We have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict. And we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that.
Matt Klink, Republican strategist, Sarah Clare, professor and foreign policy commentator, as well as David K. Johnston, senior journalist, all joining me live on the broadcast to talk more about the Alaska summit, inconclusive but positive. Now, we've played out some of these pictures for our viewers to better understand the optics, the narrative, what really went into these meetings, and most importantly, what could be the takeaways for these two leaders, for these two countries. But, you know, I want to ask this to all three of you, which is that what happens next now? Apart from the shockwaves in almost all European capitals about the possibility of a second summit in Moscow, besides that, what happens next? You know, let me start with you, Matt. The two leaders have departed. Anchorage was the host. Now they've both flown out. things have wrapped up in Anchorage. It comes back now to Moscow and Washington, D.C. What happens next from here on?
Yeah, I think that what's next, if this thing has any legs for the future, is that there needs to be a second meeting at a to be determined location that I can pretty much guarantee is not going to be in Moscow.
Okay. Sarah, to you next, then how things are now likely to pan out from here on? And how soon do you think there could be a second step here? Because Donald Trump had said all along that if there is no positive meeting, I'm going to walk out. I'm going to figure that out in just a couple of minutes. After that, I'm going to keep moving if nothing happens. So by the looks of it, this is the longest time that he and Vladimir Putin have spoken. So by the looks of it, by his own metric, he would consider this meeting to be, if not a success, at least positive. So how soon do you think the next step, the next meeting, the next phone call, any of that is likely to take place?
I think if it's going to take place, it's got to happen very soon to protect this progress and make sure, that they keep everybody focused. I've said before, mediating this conflict is kind of like herding cats because both these leaders, Putin and Zelensky, are very easily distracted and drawn back into a conflict mode or a mode where they really don't want to talk to each other. So it's got to happen very quickly, hopefully within the next couple weeks.
Okay. Now, David, then let me bring you in on the other aspect as far as the India impact of this is concerned. We in India are also looking very closely at this meeting. And in fact, just hours before that meeting was to start in Alaska, Donald Trump actually said that Vladimir Putin is coming to talk because of the Russian sanctions that have been imposed and because of the fresh set of sanctions I'm imposing on import of Russian oil. So there was a certain hardening of posture that happened before that meeting. None of it, of course, seemed to reflect in the body language between the two leaders, which was very warm and cordial. But from that point of view, the sanctions, the import of Russian oil, the frustration that Donald Trump felt in terms of not getting a ceasefire and therefore not getting that Nobel, how is that likely to now pan out from here?
Well, first of all, they're going to have to move very quickly if they want to get somewhere with this plan, whatever it is, because the longer it's out there and as things begin to leak out from European governments and perhaps the Ukrainian government, there'll be wedges driven about this. So I absolutely agree with Professor Clare that they've got to move quite quickly here if they're going to reach some kind of an agreement. At the same time, we need to keep in mind that Donald would like to extend this in some ways because he needs desperately a diversion from the issue of you promised to make the files of the sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein public, and they've gone to great lengths not to make them public. And Donald, as I've said on your station before, cannot survive any irrefutable evidence that he is a child rapist. He can survive everything else, but he can't survive clear evidence that he's a child rapist. So Donald has a different set of interests here, but I think getting to the next stage and either we go somewhere or we don't is overwhelmingly likely. And by next stage, days, no more than a week or two. So
what you're saying is domestic politics will also dictate how soon Donald Trump wants to act on this. But this has also been the big foreign policy goal of his government ever since he came to power. In fact, even in on his campaign trail, he said that if he was in power, these wars would either not have happened or would have ended in 24 hours. He said that, though, of course, this is probably the longest 24 hours in history, because he said that even on day one, that I'm going to end those conflicts in 24 hours. Now, Matt, we've spoken about the specifics of these of the meeting, the very little details that we have right now besides the optics. And I'm going to now come to the specifics as to reason why many feel that Putin is, while Donald Trump is definitely not losing out in this meeting, the optics are very much warm and cordial, but Putin may go home to have more wins under this belt. Also, two things. One, the fact that this was a very warm welcome on American soil, the fact that he rode in the beast, we're playing out those visuals, the fact that he also laid flowers at that Soviet-era cemetery to make a point about the Soviet soldiers during the Second World War. All of that adds up to the optics. He also got to speak first. When was the last time that a foreign leader actually got to speak first ahead of the host leader?
Well, I'm willing to bet that he spoke first because Donald Trump allowed him to do that. Look, this whole day was stage managed by the Trump people, from everything from the walk up with the Alaska 2025 and the jets parked on either side of the red carpet to the B-2 bomber flying overhead. Vladimir Putin doesn't have that. And he knows he doesn't have that. And he is also very keenly aware of what Donald Trump just used maybe that very same B-2 bomber to do to Iran's nuclear capacity. So from that perspective, it was a public relations show of force by America. But look, Vladimir Putin is a savvy politician of his own right, perhaps even more shrewd than Donald Trump. He knew what he wanted out of this. And I got to believe that he got it. Both men were happy. I mean, look at it this way. You have two apex type A males of the maximum level, both meeting with each other, representing two of the three world's superpowers. So again, this was diplomacy on the highest matter. And I think that, again, Donald Trump got what he wanted out of it. Putin got what he wanted out of it, and it will be up to, ultimately to the spinmeisters and to whatever comes out of this meeting to determine who ultimately won or lost. My guess is that there will be a continuation of talks, and hopefully it yields to progress. But America's not going to continue to stroke checks to the Ukrainians for a war that they're never going to win.
Right. And you spoke about the warm handshakes. The two alpha males that they met, they're pretty much of the same alpha male type, I would say. And let's play out that images that we have of them sharing that handshake and in fact sharing a laugh there. Those are visuals after the press briefing. Both of them are sharing a laugh there. And it really did seem like a very cordial meeting between the two leaders, ended on the note on which it pretty much started, which is where Donald Trump rolled the red carpet and clapped, waited for Putin. And that's exactly the same body language, the same bonhomie you see here as well. Both of them sharing a laugh after that briefing. A quick break, viewers. On that note, we come back with our rolling coverage of this big story.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold CDSL for the long term?
Buy, sell or hold.
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live, ask, decide and invest wisely.
Your portfolio, your future. Ask Profit.
And that's why it's being said that after Kahuna Pyare, this is the film that has got two superstar debutants who are becoming superstars. But what was this faith that you had on these two that that shows on screen?
You don't plan to make a blockbuster. You plan to make a good film. And that's what I think they never let me, they didn't put that pressure on me to live up to. They never gave me a number that we have to hit or a so-called figure that I have to open to. There was all these trappings were just not there, which normally producers do end up putting that pressure. Then you make wrong things. Then you add a song for a shadi song, add a Punjabi song. All these trappings were not there in this film. They were like, just go there and make your film. Do this script. We love this script and make it honestly. And I think the minute that happened, a filmmaker has I could just spread my wings and just go out, not worrying about a few. I think when you do that, you get a little more fearless, and then that's what got picked up by people. So I cast appropriate for the film. I didn't cast thinking. I cast what felt right.
You were saying that you are going to say no to him.
Yeah. But that's his fault. Huh? He was now you see, now that we can talk about the film, Krish Kapoor cannot be a timid, sweet boy.
Yes,
sir, how are you, sir?
Last time we spoke.
Yeah, and I was like, what is this guy? He was a sweet boy. And then by the end of the night, I could see the boisterous self, and I could see the Krish Kapoor who could stand on top and say, don't forget this name, it's Krish Kapoor. So I think I was looking for that a bit. I needed a spark of that.
Pulling us into this country. They argue, I conclude. They deflect, I drill down. Stop. This isn't a free-for-all. It's a reckoning. No filler, no fog. Only the facts and where they lead. Every night at 9, the case closes because the buck stops here.
Rajasthan is history, culture, and much more. And I have been reporting on all things royal for more than 25 years.
The colors, the culture, and the complexities of the Northeast is different from the rest of the country. I have been bringing the Northeast closer to the capital for over 15 years.
Madhya Pradesh is the heart of India, and I have been capturing its every beat for over 10 years, covering the corridors of power, what is said, what is left unsaid, and what it actually means for you and me. I have it all covered.
Kashmir is often called paradise on earth, a region that has been in a state of flux. From conflict to India's crowning glory, I have been reporting and decoding Jammu and Kashmir for last 3 decades.
Mohit, you are known for your music. All your films, musics stay with us till today. I'm a millennial and those music are kind of music. So whenever we say Mohit Suri film aa raha hai, we know the music will be good, right? It's a given. So you really work hard. But is this always like how you create your music? You need everything in place, the mood, the lighting, even when the person is in the studio and just singing. And also how
Viewers, the big story that we are tracking, the ICE summit, the Alaska meeting between Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin ended inconclusive. It was the longest time that the two leaders had met face-to-face. There were warm welcomes, handshakes, red carpet, and in fact, a ride in the beast as well. The two leaders managed to meet away from the delegations with which they had those detailed talks. And the press conference that they held after their meeting, short, crisp, but left with probably one of the biggest headlines, which was that a second potential meeting could take place in Moscow. Something that sent shockwaves across European capitals, most of them dreading the possibility of any potential discussions to take place on Russian soil. Let's get in Maha Siddiqui, my colleague who's been tracking this meeting from Anchorage, joining us live. Now, Maha, things are wrapping up where you were at Anchorage. The visuals tell the story. While the meeting may have been inconclusive, warm handshakes to some red carpet welcome to a potential Moscow summit. By all accounts, this looks like a meeting that both the leaders wanted, ideally, to have ended just this way.
Yes, it appears to be so, Gauri, and it also brings to us a very important question on whether this meeting was only about Ukraine or whether Ukraine was used as an excuse for US and Russia to thrash out some bilateral issues between them as well and discuss some critical bilateral issues like trade, commerce, like trade in tech, as well as cooperation in other sectors. Specifically, something that was being speculated here very widely, although it was dismissed as a mere speculation, the cooperation between the two on critical minerals. Now, these aspects are now appearing to have been taken up in the meeting as well, because there was a mention of that by President Putin. And the bonhomie of sorts that was shown on the red carpet, the two handshakes, one for the cameras, one when Putin got off the aircraft, and also the manner in which President Trump shook his hand, using both his hands at one point to shake his hands warmly, the red carpet welcome, the ride in the beast. All of these optics are also very much speaking about the meeting today, which yielded no result for Ukraine, because there hasn't even been a ceasefire that could be announced from this meeting. And we are not even sure at the moment whether this will lead to a second meeting, as had been pointed out earlier by President Trump, that there could be a meeting with the Ukrainian side, Ukrainian president, the Russian side, US, and even perhaps some European partners in that meeting to get an all-encompassing view and then lead towards a peace deal. If we are to believe what has been said today in the joint press conference with regards to agreements on some points, President Trump said that there were several points on which there was agreement, and critically on one point, but it was not outlined what exactly it was.
And this has been a major speculation that the larger discussion, the bilateral discussion between US and Russia was likely to be the overarching theme, with Ukraine being one of the many things, one of the many issues that the two leaders wish to discuss. And Sarah, let me get your quick view on that as well, that it was largely about US and Russia, with the Ukraine conflict being just one of the many themes that the two leaders wish to address.
Yeah, I think that the economic incentives that were discussed was still part of the Ukraine negotiations, at least from the U.S. perspective, because Russia's economy is really struggling. Their own foreign or finance ministry, has put out that they have labor shortages, they have inflation. So Donald Trump knows that, and he came to this meeting prepared to bring some solutions for President Putin. It just remains to be seen if Putin is smart enough to take advantage of those offers. I think by the fact that he came to the meeting, that hopefully that means he is.
All right, I'm going to leave it there. Sarah Claire, Matt Klink, and David K. Johnston joining me live on the broadcast. Thank you so much for your perspective on the big story that NDTV has been tracking, which is the Alaska summit. It has ended, no deal, even as things seem to be headed towards a positive outcome. When that will be, how soon it will be, what will be the shape of that, the roadmap to that remains unclear, but the red carpet indicates that the chances of that happening are higher than ever before. On that note, a quick break. We return with our rolling coverage. Stay with us.
NDTV 24/7 is India's #1 English news channel on YouTube. Credible, compelling, always ahead of the curve. Thank you for choosing NDTV 24/7 as your trusted source for news.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru. Only on NDTV 24/7.
Vanakkam Tamil Nadu. Well, the battle for Tamil Nadu 2026 is open now.
After Chief Minister Stalin rolls up his sleeves.
And Vijay steps in as a star challenger.
This is a mass gathering, not for cash.
Meanwhile, a former Chief Minister, Edapadi Palanisamy, begins his fight back.
The big comeback campaign by EPS has well and truly begun.
These are all the ultimate players, and this is going to be the ultimate test.
हेलो बोलिए मैडम, डब्बा टेलिंग कब से चल रहा है पता है मैडम आपको? हम और आप तो जन्म भी नहीं हुआ था हमारा.
We investigated a shady advisory firm that has spent big bucks on advertising on the front pages of national dailies.
ये आपको बिल्कुल उसका ऐसे हल्का सा भी खौफ नहीं है।
मैडम एक बार खौफ किस लिए रखना चाहिए तो बताओ, कौन सा गलत काम कर रहा हूँ मैं?
After our report, we also saw NSE came out with a cautionary circular to the investors. Market Regulator Securities and Exchange Board of India has also come out with a release talking about the actions that it has taken. Cyber complaint has also been filed against the entities involved in this entire Dabba trading scam.
Is your business future ready? Join the 13-week strategic ESG certification program for business sustainability and growth for CXO and business leaders by NDTV, Terry and Zenora. Master global ESG frameworks, gain real-world tools and lead with impact. Starts August the 23rd. Enroll now and power your business with sustainability.
यहाँ पे आप खड़े रहेंगे।
मैं यहाँ पे। एक्शन। तेरी सांसों को मेरे दिल में पनाह मिल जाए। मैं पढ़ के बोलूं? आपने कहा था। मुझे याद नहीं।
चलो सुनने करके।
अरे भैया आप मेरे आगे मत रहो। हमारी एक्टिविटीज जो आगे और शाम के फंक्शन तक आप ठीक रहेंगे ना? बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
अभी चाय लेंगे?
हाँ।
थोड़ा राइट में लीजिए।
प्रवीण जी, we are ready when you are ready.
आप ही लोगों का कार्यक्रम है, जोरदार तालियों से जरा जय जवान का और अपना स्वागत हम यहीं पे कर लेते हैं। थैंक यू सो मच। एक बार जोरदार तालियां सभी के लिए।
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold CDSL for the long term?
Buy, sell or hold.
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live, ask, decide and invest wisely.
Your portfolio, your future. Ask Profit.
And you know, that's why it's being said that after Kahuna Pyare, this is the
The Alaska summit may have broken the ice between Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, but did not lead to any conclusive decision as far as the conflict is concerned. But let's get you some images, some visuals that tell you that the two leaders did strike a chord there. That is Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, sharing a laugh after their joint press conference. There were handshakes, there's light chatter that followed the historical meeting after it was officially over. That tells you that there was bonhomie at play, just that it did not really lead to any ceasefire, any formal deal, but potentially pave the way or set the stage for that to happen in the next summit that may take place between the two leaders soon. All right, on that note, a quick break, viewers. We return with more stories, more updates and more stories on the other side.
Pulling us
other opposition parties.
They argue, I conclude. They deflect, I drill down. This isn't a free-for-all. It's a reckoning. No filler, no fog. Only the facts and where they lead. Every night at 9, the case closes because the buck stops here.
Rajasthan is history, culture, and much more. And I have been reporting on all things royal for more than 25 years.
The colors, the culture, and the complexities of the Northeast is different from the rest of the country. I have been bringing the Northeast closer to the capital for over 15 years.
Madhya Pradesh is the heart of India, and I have been capturing its every beat for over 10 years, covering the corridors of power, what is said, what is left unsaid, and what it actually means for you and me. I have it all covered.
Kashmir is often called paradise on earth, a region that has been in a state of flux from conflict to India's crowning glory. I have been reporting and decoding Jammu and Kashmir for last 3 decades.
Mohit, you are known for your music. All your films, musics stay with us till today. I'm a millennial and those music are kind of music. So whenever we say Mohit Suri film aa raha hai, we know the music will be good, right? It's a given. So you really work hard. But is this always like how you create your music? You need everything in place, the mood, the lighting, even when the person is in the studio and just singing. And also, how did you select your musicians that this person's voice is perfect for this song?
That's what I think, the amount you give to a song, that's how long it will last, I think. Everyone does the programming, everyone writes the words, everyone makes the thing. But the thing is how much you give, how much of heart you give to the lyrics or to the music or to the melody or to the singing. That's how long the song will last, is what I genuinely feel. If you don't give that love, you're not going to get it back. It's just a simple debit and credit procedure, I think, with the audience. I genuinely feel I don't have any special skill. I don't know any scale or anything else. It's just that I enjoy that process a lot. Give me an evening to just go for a film.
Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin meet ends. The high-stakes meeting in Alaska remains inconclusive. Says no deal reached with Putin on Ukraine. Vladimir Putin offers to host Donald Trump next time in Moscow. No peace deal announced in the high-stakes meeting between the Russian and American presidents from Alaska with ambiguity. Talks end, but the tensions remain. No reporter questions were taken by both leaders at the brief press conference. And updates coming in as far as the Kishtwar cloudburst is concerned. Rescue relief operations underway. 60 people killed, 500 feared trapped. Jammu Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah reaches Kishtwar. Prime Minister Modi assures full support. Viewers, our top story, a big focus this hour. The ICE summit in Alaska between the presidents of America and Russia concluded the longest face-to-face meeting between the two leaders. After Helsinki, which was in 2018, they met now in 2025. By Donald Trump's own metric, this meeting was a success. He said going into the summit that if he felt that it was not leading to anything positive, he would walk out in minutes. He stayed for the longest time he's ever met Vladimir Putin. On your screens are those visuals that tell what really happened in Anchorage in Alaska, where the two leaders met. Donald Trump rolled out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin. The two leaders walked together after a very warm welcome that the Russian president received. The first time in a decade that he stepped foot on American soil. And then they also rode together in the Beast, which is the vehicle of the American president, where the two leaders managed to speak one-on-one without their delegation. It was a formal delegation-level discussions with 3+3 on both sides for over 2.5 hours. Expectation is that they were thrashing out details of more than just the conflict. It could be largely, the focus would be on the relationship, the bilateral relationship between US and Russia. But remember, the Russia-Ukraine conflict remained the big focus. There were many active activists there. There were a lot of Ukraine supporters there. Whole of European capitals were up in arms that they still remained on the sidelines and were not part of this important meeting. And in fact, there was a question that was asked to Vladimir Putin on just that, which was that how long before the hostilities end? Why is it that on ground, the military victories that Russia is getting right now, day by day, is leading to more and more Ukrainian casualties? He appeared to not hear that question from the reporter. Listen in.
Underestimate Ukraine. President Putin, will you stop killing civilians? President Putin, how can the U.S. trust your word?
All right, those were some questions put forth to Vladimir Putin, which he appeared to not hear. Let's also now play out the soundbite of Donald Trump at the press conference, where the two leaders read out their press, spoke but did not take any questions. He said, Donald Trump said that there is still no deal on the table. Remember, the ICE summit has ended without any formal agreement about how to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Listen in to what the American president said.
I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Ratcliffe. Thank you very much.
Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, businesslike and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation. However strange it may sound in these conditions, we have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict. And we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that.
Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all.
The meeting that went on for over 2.5 hours between President Trump and President Putin, along with two members each in their delegation, ended up with no deal here at the joint base, the joint U.S. military base in Anchorage. This meeting, which was quoted as a high-stakes meeting, which was highly anticipated, ended up with no deal or ceasefire. And President Trump said, till there is a deal, there is no deal, which means that now the delegations, and specifically President Trump himself, he said, will be talking to NATO and the Ukraine president. And
All right, now developments coming in thick and fast after the summit ended between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Now, the American president says the onus lies on the Ukrainian President Zelensky to get the deal done. Donald Trump says he wants to make sure that the deal is done. Now, this is extremely significant. Remember, Ukraine was not part of the summit. They've said all along that we will not allow any decision regarding our future to be taken without us being present on the table. That has never been the case so far with regard to the Trump administration. In terms of what happens next, Donald Trump has made it absolutely clear that for a deal to go through, there is a big and loud message that he has sent to the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, that if you want the deal, then you've got to agree. That seems to be the tone as far as this is concerned. All right, let's go back to Maha Siddiqui, my colleague, joining us live from Anchorage. Maha, we've been speaking through the last couple of hours about this summit, but now developments and after effects have started coming in. Ukraine needs to come in line for any potential deal to actually happen. That seems to be the message here.
Absolutely, Gaudi, and a very significant statement there coming from US President Donald Trump. He did not mention it here during the press briefing, but he's saying that now on board his aircraft Air Force One on his way back to Washington, D.C., that the onus lies with President Zelensky now. Now, a similar kind of indication was given by President Putin at the press conference, because President Putin indicated that that President Zelensky now has to take this forward. And in fact, he said, I hope that Ukraine doesn't torpedo this effort and go into some sort of a back channel dialogue. So clearly now, both sides have together pushed the ball in Ukraine's court, but all will depend on what President Putin has agreed to. And that is something that we have not been told. It has not been made clear what are the points on which there was an agreement between the two sides, that is, US and Russia, as they sat down for over 2.5 hours and discussed those points. Some of the points that Russia had already said in the past and in the memorandum in June for a peace deal with Ukraine were points that were totally unacceptable to Ukraine. For instance, that of not being a claimant to the membership of NATO, reducing their army, or territorial swap. Now, territorial swap is something that Ukraine believes will be disadvantageous to it, considering that Russia is, as has already expressed, wants to keep control of the regions that they have wrested control of, rather, in the 3.5 years of the war with Ukraine and earlier on in the annexation of Crimea. And these are vast expanses of land from Ukraine. Nearly 4 oblasts that border Russia are in Russia's control, which are essentially part of Ukraine, including a vast area of Donbass region. So clearly, these will be unacceptable to Ukraine. And under these circumstances, if the onus is being put on President Zelensky, we'll have to wait to see how not just President Zelensky reacts to this, but also NATO.
Indeed, how NATO reacts to this, how all of European allies of America responds to this remains to be seen. But this is essentially what many people were talking. And in fact, President Trump himself was mentioning about territorial stops not likely to happen. That is what the hardening posture was coming in from the Trump administration going into this meeting. But there seems to be a complete change. Now, this was an interview that Donald Trump gave to an American network a short while back after the summit, where he said, make a deal. The deal is only about territorial swaps. Now, if Ukraine doesn't agree to it, are we looking at a deadlock? Are we then looking at Donald Trump changing tack, coming out heavily on Ukraine, what had happened at the beginning of his tenure early on in February of this year? So that really now poses a completely different set of questions, doesn't it, Maha? Territorial swap was not on the table is what many people believed, but clearly that seems to be the case, that it was very much on the table in terms of negotiations between Trump and Putin regarding how to end the war.
So on the flight, while he was coming from Washington, D.C. to Alaska this morning, this specific question was asked by a reporter about the possibility of a territorial swap. And he did say that we will discuss that issue, but ultimately the decision has to be taken by Ukraine. But now it appears that he has discussed the matter and just simply thrown the ball in Ukraine's court to have a deal now. The deal at which cost, we do not know. What are the territories that are being looked at for swapping? There is no clarity on that. Moreover, when this phrase territorial swap is used, many are asking, what is this swap really going to look like? The word swap means that there has to be give and take. But what is it that Russia is willing to give in return for the territory that they are demanding from Ukraine, which they have wrested control of under this aggression that they have enforced against Ukraine over the past 3.5 years? So very serious questions at play now. What is it exactly that has been discussed? How this deal is going to be, structured? All these questions are remaining at the moment. Gauri, what is also surprising is that if the onus were to be put on President Zelensky, then that should have come through even in the press conference as well. When President Trump said that he's going to speak to President Zelensky and to NATO, and finally the decision will be taken after all these consultations, suddenly within an hour on the flight to say the onus is completely now with President Zelensky, also changing tune from the morning when a reporter on board asked him about if Russia is not willing to make a deal, will you go hammer and tongs against them? And he said, yes, there will be serious consequences for Russia. It seems that President Putin has been able to convince President Trump that he is in the clear and that he is willing to make a deal. But the real problem is Ukraine. And will that line of thought be acceptable to Europe and Ukraine? That is a very big question.
Maha, stay with me because I want to now quickly tell our viewers what is the amount of territory that Russia actually holds right now in this 3.5-year-long war. Now, Crimea is something that Russia annexed in 2014, 9 years back. That time, Barack Obama was the US president. In addition to that, there is also the Donbass region, the Luhansk region. Then there is Zaporizhia. That is another important region. And lastly, Kherson. Put together, all of this adds up to about 20%, a little under 20% of overall Ukrainian territory. You're talking about a 1/5 of Ukraine here, Maha, which is why it is so significant, which is why it's a red line, not just for Ukraine, but for the entire NATO, for all of EU allies of America, that how can a country now go ahead and swap 1/5 of its territory to be able to ensure it gets some sort of a peace formula going. Is Maha still with us? Okay, Maha, let me come back to you and ask you this before I get in Vishal, which is that we're talking about a territory that's 1/5 of overall Ukrainian territory. How can that actually go through? Then are we then looking at, red lines of EU, red lines of NATO, and potentially deal breakers here?
Yes, absolutely. And for a sovereign nation to give up its territory sets a very bad precedent for the world as well. While neighbors can grab territory from the others, that doesn't set a very good example. And in this context, therefore, as Europe has been saying for the last 3.5 years, and Ukraine has been saying for the last 3.5 years, that this is a no-go zone, that we are not going to negotiate on territory which belongs to us and that which has been forcefully taken away from us. Of course, if you listen to Russia's point of view, there's this completely a different viewpoint. It started off with the ambition of Ukraine to join the NATO, and Russia had an issue with security. And today, President Putin pointed that out again, the security balance in Europe, indicating that they are not comfortable with the idea of Ukraine joining NATO as a member. Meanwhile, many, even at that time, believed that this was a smokescreen, that this wasn't the real threat that Putin had, and rather he was using this as an excuse to go and wage a war against Ukraine, and that this was entirely the imperialistic ambitions, territorial grab that Russia was conducting. And if at all the issue now is boiling down to territorial swap, we still do not know. Let there be clarity on that issue, Gauri. Then it comes back to the same point. Was the war only about grabbing territory, Was it nothing to do with the NATO membership of Ukraine? And these questions clearly remain.
And Maha, let me then now rope in Vishal as well to talk us through the big takeaways as far as the summit was all about. Remember, the summit ended a short while back with warm handshakes, bonhomie, cordial relations at play here. The hard negotiations that need to follow is what we are now talking about. Those developments are coming in. But let's walk you through the big takeaways of that summit. Vishal.
So the biggest one is probably Putin saying that he's sincerely interested in putting an end to the war. He has said that in the past as well, but to say that on the biggest platform with Trump, that really is a big takeaway. The second one is Trump hinting at points of disagreement. Although he has not highlighted what those points of disagreements are, but he said that most of the things have been thrashed out. There are few minor details that need to be worked out. It could be the land swap deal that he's talked about in the past, in the recent past as well, but he's not said what are these points of disagreement. So that's another takeaway. Then Putin stresses on need to eliminate primary causes of conflict. So he has started this conflict based on these points of interest, only based on these primary causes of conflict. This so-called special operations inside Ukraine started in February 2022 due to these causes of concerns, because he has said repeatedly that Ukraine has been governed by many Nazis, the population of Ukraine, of which a lot of Russians also are there. They are being suppressed. There is long-term persecution going on, so that needs to be removed. So whether or not he was talking about that, that needs to be clarified, but he has indeed spoken about the primary causes of the conflict. Moving on, Trump has said there is no deal until there is a deal. So that is probably the biggest highlight of the statement that both the leaders gave just a few hours ago. There is no deal at the moment, even though both the leaders came out all smiles and the bonhomie was shared, but there is indeed no deal. And lastly, Putin has proposed the next round of talks in Moscow. He has, of course, not mentioned Zelensky. Trump himself also did not mention Zelensky. He said that he will call Zelensky, but he did not mention whether there will be Zelensky in the next round of talks. But Putin has indeed proposed the next round of talks with his counterpart from US, so that will have to be seen. These are some of the biggest takeaways.
All right, let's now get in Alison and Michelle to talk more on this. Alison Federica, Director of Analysis at Geopolitical Futures. Michelle Plitnick, Foreign Policy Analyst and author, both joining me live from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for speaking to us. The big story that we continue to track, the Alaska Summit, and now fresh developments post that meeting between Russian and American guests, American president joining me on the broadcast are Alison and Mitchell. In fact, Mitchell, let me come to you first in terms of, as I said, the bonhomie, the handshakes, the good optics, all of that has happened. Now you're getting fresh updates. You're getting the fact that Donald Trump has told in no uncertain terms to Ukrainian President Zelensky that he will have to accept the deal, and that deal will only go through if there are some sort of territorial swaps.
Yeah, I think one of the big takeaways is it looks like President Trump told Fox News that one of the things that he's saying to Zelensky is that Russia is a big power and Ukraine is not. That sounds to me like Putin made a case to Trump that he holds the cards and a realistic deal has to be largely on Russia's terms. And I think that's what Trump is moving forward with. I think that's what he is implying with those statements, and that he expects Zelensky to take the deal, at least as far as land swaps. And I suspect as well that Trump probably is sympathetic to the idea of promising Russia that Ukraine will not be able to enter NATO. The United States can certainly rescind the invitation George W. Bush made to them in 2007 to join NATO. any new member needs unanimous backing. So any NATO member can block that. And if the United States says that there will be no NATO membership for Ukraine, there won't be. So I think this is where Trump and Putin have probably agreed. And I don't think these are terms that are going to sound very good to President Zelensky.
Certainly won't. And it's not just Zelensky alone. Remember, the entire EU ally network of America, NATO, all of them have been very clear that they want to be part of any discussions about the future of Ukraine, including Zelensky himself, who needs to be on the table, because you cannot decide about a country till that country is represented as well. Alison, your thoughts on these updates that are coming in, fresh developments coming in, and also a huge change in stance for Donald Trump. You know, about an hour back, we had those good optics where he said no deal till there is actually a deal. And, you know, it seemed to suggest that there is progress. But now what you're hearing is a completely different stance of the American president, that Ukraine will have to accept what's on the table.
So I think if we think about these talks, it's helpful to think about them in two tracks. One is obviously the Ukraine issue, where Trump is trying to position himself as some sort of mediator where they can get a deal between Ukraine and Russia. At the same time, it's also about the U.S.-Russian relationship, and that is a much broader spectrum than just Ukraine. The sanctions, the Caucasus, a bunch of other places and interests come into play when we think about the U.S. and Russia. What the U.S. can do, and what they're trying to do, I think, here in this case, is they have a broad framework and agreement with Russia. They've obviously agreed to certain aspects of a deal. Putin cannot walk away from Ukraine without keeping some of the territories that were gained. That's just a non-starter for him. What the U.S. can't do is tell Zelensky, you have to accept this deal. However, Ukraine requires U.S. and European financial and military support to continue their war effort. So should the U.S. again, change its stance and movement in terms of what it's willing to offer Ukrainian support, that could significantly constrain what Ukraine is able to do. The EU also would be put in the position of, how do we support Ukraine? They would actually have to put their money where their mouth is. They've given Ukraine some money this week, but that money came from frozen Russian assets, not necessarily from the EU. So it's, when we say putting the ball in their court, it is the U.S. kind of putting constraints on Ukraine and expecting different players to either follow through on what they're saying or to back off. But it is not about necessarily trying to coerce for Ukraine, but to try to end the conflict in a way that works for U.S. interests and Russian interests.
19% of Ukraine is under Russian control right now. 19%. Some very large regions. There is Crimea, there is Kherson, there is Donetsk, and several others. For territorial swap to happen, for any deal to happen, if the condition is that Ukraine will have to give up all or some part of this territory, then it's all set to be a deal breaker. What happens then is what we are going to now focus on, and what could be the roadmap in terms of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. We will now focus on that after this very short break. Viewers, stay with us.
NDTV 24/7 is India's #1 English news channel on YouTube. Credible, compelling, always ahead of the curve. Thank you for choosing NDTV 24/7 as your trusted source for news.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru. Only on NDTV 24/7.
Vanakkam Tamil Nadu.
the battle for Tamil Nadu 2026 is open now.
After Chief Minister Stalin rolls up his sleeves.
And Vijay steps in as a star challenger.
This is a mass gathering, not for cash.
Meanwhile, a former Chief Minister, Edapadi Palaniswamy, begins his fight back.
The big comeback campaign by EPS has well and truly begun.
These are all the ultimate players, and this is going to be the ultimate test.
हेलो
हेलो
बोलिए मैडम डब्बा ट्रेडिंग कब से चल रहा है पता है मैडम आपको हम और आप तो जन्म भी नहीं हुआ था हमारा
We investigated a shady advisory firm that has spent big bucks on advertising on the front pages of national dailies.
ये आपको बिल्कुल उसका ऐसा हल्का सा भी खौफ नहीं है।
मैडम एक बात को खौफ किस लिए रखना चाहिए ये तो बताओ कौन सा गलत काम कर रहा हूँ मैं
After our report, we also saw NSE came out with a cautionary circular to the investors. Market Regulator Securities and Exchange Board of India has also come out with a release talking about the actions that it has taken. Cyber complaint has also been filed against the entities involved in this entire Dabba trading scam.
Is your business future ready? Join the 13-week strategic ESG certification program for business sustainability and growth for CXO and business leaders by NDTV, Terry and Zenora. Master global ESG frameworks, gain real-world tools and lead with impact. Starts August the 23rd. Enroll now and power your business with sustainability.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold CDSL for the long term?
Buy, sell or hold.
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live, ask, decide and invest wisely.
Your portfolio, your future. Ask Profit.
And that's why it's being said that after Kahuna Pyare, this is the film that has got two superstar debutants who are becoming superstars. But what was this faith that you had on these two that that shows on screen?
You don't plan to make a blockbuster. You plan to make a good film. And that's what I think they never let me, they didn't put that pressure on me to live up to. They never gave me a number that we have to hit or a so-called figure that I have to open to. There was all these trappings were just not there, which normally producers do end up putting that pressure. Then you make wrong things. Then you add a song for a shadi song, add a Punjabi song. All these trappings were not there in this film. They were like, just go there and make your film. Do this script. We love this script and make it honestly. And I think the minute that happened, a filmmaker I could just spread my wings and just go out, not worrying about a few. I think when you do that, you get a little more fearless, and then that's what got picked up by people. So I cast appropriate for the film. I didn't cast thinking. I cast what felt right.
You were saying that you are going to say no to him.
Yeah. But that's his fault. Huh? He was now you see, now that we can talk about the film, Krish Kapoor cannot be a timid, sweet boy.
Yes,
sir, how are you, sir?
Last time we spoke.
Yeah, and I was like, what is this guy? He was a sweet boy. And then by the end of the night, I could see the boisterous self, and I could see the Krish Kapoor who could stand on top and say, don't forget this name, it's Krish Kapoor. So I think I was looking for that a bit. I needed a spark of that.
Pulling us into this country.
They argue, I conclude. They deflect, I drill down.
rather than increasing. This isn't a free-for-all. It's a reckoning. No filler, no fog. Only the facts and where they lead. Every night at 9, the case closes because the buck stops here.
Rajasthan is history, culture, and much more. And I have been reporting on all things royal for more than 25 years.
The colors, the culture, and the complexities of the Northeast is different from the rest of the country. I have been bringing the Northeast closer to the capital for over 15 years. Madhya Pradesh is the heart of India, and I have been capturing its every beat for over 10 years, covering the corridors of power, what is said, what is left unsaid, and what it actually means for you and me. I have it all covered.
Kashmir is often called paradise on earth, a region that has been in a state of flux from conflict to India's crowning glory. I have been reporting and decoding Jammu.
Viewers, our big story continues to be the Alaska summit. The ice has broken between America and Russia. There's been the first time in a decade the Russian president is on American soil. Warm greetings, red carpet welcome. The two leaders exchanged handshakes, they shared laughs, and they spoke the longest they have on a face-to-face meeting, surpassed the previous time they spoke in Helsinki in 2018. Now, has this laid the groundwork for how the Russia-Ukraine conflict will end, or has this laid the groundwork for how Russia-America relationship will now